Hi, it's Latina here, and I'd like to talk with you today about our very special and sacred whale retreats, why we can be with the whales in this way, what we give to the whales when we're in the water, and the beautiful two-way communication that occurs between us, and the transformation that happens and why, how you feel on the retreat, how you feel when you're in the water with the whales, and also what happens when you return home to your families and friends. Well, this is something very dear to my heart, so I love to share this with you about our sacred whale retreats. I take women to see and be with the whales every year, and we have done them in Tahiti, and now we focus only in Hervey Bay, Australia. Now, there's a very special little window of time that we have, and it's always in August. So we are going again in 2024. And I'd like to talk with you about what happens on these retreats, why they are so magical, and why the transformation occurs. And most importantly, when you do feel the transformation, what does that look like? How do you feel? And how do you actually return back to your everyday life as you knew it before you'd been with the whales? And that's a very important consideration. So, firstly, our retreats are in a very special period of time, and they only are really for quite a short time, given the enormity of the transformation and the emotion of the retreat and the high energy of the retreat. You could actually say that we pack everything into 5 days. We pack a year's worth of growth into 5 days. But in fact, there is time leading up to the retreat that we spend together, a lot of time actually. And so, being multidimensional people, we also work with non-linear time. So, this time that we have leading up to the retreats months before, we spend in our sacred circles. Now, these sacred circles help us to prepare ourselves mentally, definitely mentally. There's a lot of thought that goes into immersing next to the largest creatures on the planet today. And physically, yes, we have to talk about what happens to our bodies physically and what we need to be able to do to be immersed with them. And then emotionally, spiritually, what happens there and energetically. And this is the biggest piece because when we can be prepared emotionally and energetically and spiritually, we're putting our energies out ahead of us. We are creating our energetic field, our energy body. And this is what the whales respond to. It's all about energy. And this is what I do. I lead the pod and I hold very, uh, what is it? How can I say? Sacredly, if there's another word for that, the space for our transformation and growth, myself included. And I hold that space for us, that safe container, so that you and I can all grow, change, develop, know what we're going through, feel what we're going through, share our experiences, and then we bond and we become a pod ourselves. And that energy pod of ours, the energy of our pod is set. And that's what we put out ahead of us and take to the retreat. Now, when we get to the retreat, we have a beautiful ceremony with a local Indigenous elder that really helps us to understand the country that we're standing on and what the oceans, what the whales are in that country, what they do. And they swim the seven oceans of the world, but really, how do they relate to us when we're there? Why do they come back to that same place every year? Why do they follow their song lines? How are we following our own song lines and our soul's expression to take us there at that point? We have a beautiful ceremony that welcomes us into the retreat, where we are asked to drop and leave behind our karma and our stories. Now, we have been doing this leading up to the retreat, but when we're actually on the ground, on the sacred land, right there, ready to go and be with the whales, it somehow takes on a very, very different feeling, a very different tone. And it's not that it gets serious, but it means that we are serious and that we are here for the growth, here for the awakenings, here for the spiritual transformations, and here to receive and share love with the largest creatures on the planet. So then we have 3 days out on the boats in the beautiful waters of Australia's ocean, of the Pacific Ocean. We are there and we are with the whales in their home, in the crystalline waters. We have sacred circle every morning. We have a lot of fun every morning leading to the boat. Then we get on the boat and we have our circle. We drop into our heart center and we are in tune with the day. We intuit where the whales are. Sometimes there might be many pods of whales. So we are guided to be with the ones that we are guided to be with. And then we see the whales that want to be with us. And when we know for sure they want to be with us, we're fully ready. And that's when the magic really begins. We know the whales that are calling us and we feel them very, 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 very deeply in our hearts. And when we have our intentions set to be with them on their terms, because we know what we all want, that we know that we want to be with them, we want to receive that beautiful transmission from them, we want to be immersed in their energy fields. And when we've set that intention and we believe it, we trust it, we know with every fiber of our being that the whales have heard and the universe has heard, then it's not just us. We are right then in this beautiful mix of creation, and we are only a part, but we are one of the willing components. And then we meet with the rest of the willing components, and that's when the divine encounters really, really occur. Sometimes when we get into the water with the whales, we have hours with them. This is not just a 3-minute swim by or watching whales underneath us. The way that we set the retreats up, the way that I hold the energy, and the way that the group brings their intentions forth through guidance means that we are there with creatures who have hooked into our energy fields. They have latched on to our signal and they become willing components to our intentions and so they become a physical part of the physical manifestation of the soul expression that we have sent out into the field. Now, this happens every day for 3 days. And in the evenings, we are very deeply immersed in their energy fields also. We may not be in the water with them anymore, but I bring them in to our sacred circles. We receive the lessons, the guidance, the love, the transmission that they have for us in our meditations in the evening, and the growth that we each want is also a collective growth. So we each become pieces and parts of that whole pod's growth and mission to expand consciousness. So when that happens at nighttime, and then we stay together in this one beautiful place, we're not separate. We're very immersed on the boat. We're immersed in our rooms. We're immersed with our guests, the retreat participants, your sisters. And then the next day we go and do it all again. And then we come home and the immersion is even deeper. And then the next day we do it again and the immersion is even deeper. And then on our closing, we have a beautiful ceremony where I channel the whales. And this is a deep and very personal question and answer time where everybody at the retreat is able to ask a question of the whale unity heart. And quite often the answers are surprising, and quite often the questions are also surprising because you may feel that you've come with one thing to accomplish or one thing to receive or to learn, to know. And then at the end of the retreat, you'll realize you have that, but actually you already had that. So then the reason for you being there becomes something completely different. It's very beautiful to listen back to those recordings, which are multidimensional and do really span the test of time. And the more you listen to them, the more you realize that every single answer that they give, that they flow, is for everybody who hears it. It's for everybody on the retreat, not just the person who asked the question. I'd also like to say that very, very critical part of our retreat is the beautiful captain and the beautiful crew and the most wonderful boat that we choose to go on, who love and respect the whales, all of them do, and they know them intimately. And they help to keep us safe in the water too. So, so much goes on when we're in the water. And something else I'd like to say is that so much goes on out of the water. So you don't have to even be in the water with the whales. You can sit down on the back step of the boat. You can lie on your tummy on the rear platform, and you don't actually have to be in the water at all. You can have your feet in the water, or you might choose to be up on the top of the boat or at the front of the boat on the nets, as one of our participants was last year, and she received the whales blowing air and bubbles underneath her for her own healing from the flu that she'd been carrying for the past few days. So the whales know each and every person who is in our pod and who comes to be with them during our retreat. They make sure that you get everything you need, even the things that you don't know you need. And they've made a promise to me that if I bring the women to the whales, they will meet them wherever they are on their awakening journey. So, number one, you don't have to get into the water to have the amazing healing and the transformational experience. Number two, you don't have to be a healer. You don't have to be an author. You don't have to be anyone who may be a public figure or doing anything that anyone needs to know about. As long as you are heart centered and wanting to know more about yourself, your own spiritual growth, and that you are treading your own path of light, wanting to know your own very own unique flavor and your own unique light, the whales will meet you wherever you are on your journey. So there's something else that happens that I'd like to share with you. That is that what happens under the water with the whales, sometimes you don't know what it is. You can't see everything all the time, and you can't hear everything with your physical ears all the time. So when we're in the water, we're lying with our faces in, we're on our tummies, we're very still, we're not kicking. And in that state, when we might be holding hands with each other or linking legs or linking arms or touching one another's arm or foot or shoulder to shoulder, we can breathe deeply and remain in our heart center. So while there is butterflies that come up, and there certainly is, especially the first couple of times you see the whales, there's amazing butterflies and flutterbys and all kinds of emotions that come. Definitely tears are released all the time. That's usually the first thing. But we're in there together, deeply immersed and in a meditative state, really. Now, we can't hear everything. So sometimes we can hear the whales beneath us, but other times we can't hear them. And it's only when we listen back to the recordings we realize just how many there were. We might have only seen two or three. In this case, behind me, you can see two that swam with us in 2022. But we might only see two of them, but there could be 8 or 9 singing down below beneath us and not too far from us. So when that sound is reverberating through our energy fields, we can't see it, we can't even hear it, But know that this is part of the transformation. So it's shaking loose things that are really, really stuck there that maybe we've been holding on to for a long time. And what happens is that when we're in that deep immersive state and we're in that meditative state, we're not thinking about our alarms. We're not thinking about our messages or our socials or our to-do lists or who to call next. We're not thinking about any of that. We are just fully 100% present. And that means that we've actually got out of our own way. We've dropped all other thought and we are purely present with the whales. Now, when that's happening in our energy fields and when we're actually enclosed or entrained into the whales' energy fields who choose to be with us and spend time with us, this is a really powerful combination. And this is how the transformation happens to you, within you. And then you see it occurring in your everyday life. You see it in your 3D existence. So it happens, first of all, within you. And then you see the manifestational evidence of transformation happening in your life. The other thing is that sometimes we can't see them. Sometimes we think we can see two only, and then we look back at the video and there's actually four of them. So it's really important that we know that we have ears of our heart and we have eyes of our hearts. And that when we're in the water with the whales, and even when we're on the boat, knowing that we're about to be with the whales and they're very, very close, that we are tuned in to our very sacred heart space, that we are dropped in deeply into that center, and that we are using our breath to keep us clear. The one conscious breath that the whales say, we have one breath, one consciousness, one mother, remembering that they choose to share their breath with us, which is absolutely awesome to think about, that these beings breathe out air, but they live in the ocean. But when they choose to be with us, they choose to take their conscious breaths where we are. How incredible is that? They are conscious breathers. They choose to come up and surface and be with us. So remembering all of these things and knowing that we see with our third eye and with the eyes of the heart, and we hear and we deeply listen to what's going on around us, listen to ourselves, listen to what our body's telling us, listen to what our other participants are telling us, what your sisters are saying to you, but hear it with the ears of your heart, and you hear things very, very differently, see things very, very differently. And this is all part of the magic that creates the transformation on our retreats. Now, then what happens when we go back home? Well, I suggest to everybody that they give themselves at least one day to stay and be on their own somewhere before they go back to the airport or get in their cars to drive back to their families. It's really important that you give yourself the space to integrate. Sometimes I think that I know the integration can take months and months. One of the very important lessons I learned in 2022, one of my biggest lessons of my life, trusting to make a very important decision that had been very hard for me to make. Actually, it wasn't hard, but I had built this up to be such a big thing. And they told me it will take a year. It will take a full year to integrate everything. And that integration is how we are moving through the dimensions from 3D to 5D. The integration is the space that I believe is the fourth dimension. And learning how to live in that fourth dimension is about trust, surrender, and flow. And this is all of their teachings. This is the center of all of their teachings. In your heart, you trust and surrender, and everything flows for you. And it's very easy to come out of that space and to be pulled into the 3D. But it's also much easier to allow the flow to take you. And if you trust and believe and know that you are going to be looked after and okay, then you will be in the flow. So that's probably a very, very big piece to remember, to integrate their teachings it is okay to go home and to feel blown away. And that definitely happens. But you need to ground yourself. You need to allow time, whether it's time in the ocean, whether it's time on the land, whether it's time sitting to journal or cooking or just being with your family in quiet space, then do that. But you really need to give yourself time to integrate their teachings. And when you integrate them, you're able then to walk with them in your everyday life. Otherwise, you'll feel like you are shot out and living somewhere else in some different existence, which on some level you are, and we all do. But the trick to this life is knowing our mastery, and our mastery is knowing that we have access to that divine connection at every second of every day, but still remaining on the ground as a 3D person in their bodies, bringing that information in so that we can share that with Gaia and spread the light across the globe, but also to stand as that light filled person who knows who they are. And when you do that, you give permission for others to do the same. So that's really why the transformation occurs on the retreats. They kick us along in exponential growth, I would say. I have been told that 1 minute of being with the whales is like 10 years of spiritual growth. So when you think about being in the water with them, eye to eye and heart to heart for 2 to 3 hours, that's why you need time to integrate, because that's incredible growth right there. Enough to keep us busy for the rest of this life and many, many more too. If you'd like to know more about the Sacred Whale retreats that I facilitate as your spiritual guide and the one who is the channel for the whales and the consciousness of the whales, known as the Whale Unity Heart, just pop a red heart in the comments below and we will scoop you up and give you all the information that you need. You can also book a call with me at the link below, book a clarity call, and I'll be able to answer all your questions personally on a 45-minute call. And I hope that you will be one of the people to join us in 2024 and be with our whales in the most sacred and magical way. Thank you. Bye for now.